So what is a co-op? With the VAWMA business flow, there are noticeable changes to the structure. Owners. Every member of VAWMA is an owner of the business. Managers. They are ultimately responsible for the profit, loss, and cost to sell for each business. These people are also elected by the board of directors as well as the collective VAWMA members. Supervisors, workers. If an assistant is needed, then the supervisors support the managers in keeping up with the daily tasks. Workers are able to choose the hours they work, the amount of shifts they work, and are paid a living wage that is agreed upon by the collective. Workers, supervisors, managers are all on the same playing field when it comes to deciding the living wage. I understand that was a lot of information that I just threw at you, and I want to take the next few minutes to unpack anything that you might not understand or clarify or review. So this is the first opportunity that you have. If you have any questions, in the chat, spit them out. If you have any questions IRL, spit them out, and I will do my best to answer to the best of my ability. Anything. I'm going to take the silence that everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about because I am just that good. Thank you again for taking the time this evening. I am going to hand it over to James now, where he is going to go into more detail about VAWMA as a collective itself, as well as how the co-op would run. Mr. Harris.
Thank you. So yeah, once again, thank you everybody for your time, for coming out. I appreciate it. I really do. We're just gonna switch over the slides. It's the same screen, so. So thank you guys again for coming. We are the Voluntary Association for Work and Mutual Aid. And how we started, very basically, I was doom scrolling on the internet, like we sometimes do. And I was seeing a lot of stuff that was giving me a lot of pause for thought, a lot of gloom, and a lot of stuff that was showing me that that things were not as they could be. And as I was doom scrolling and feeling incredibly depressed about everything, I come across this meme that shows up. There we go. A student once asked anthropologist Margaret Mead, "What is the earliest sign of civilization?" The student expected her to say a clay pot, a grinding stone, or maybe a weapon. Margaret Mead thought for a moment, and then she said, "A healed femur." A femur is one of the longest bones in the body, linking the hip to the knee. And in societies without the benefit of modern medicine, it takes about 6 weeks of rest for a fractured femur to heal. A healed femur shows that someone cared for the injured person, did their hunting and gathering for them, stayed with them, and offered a physical protection and human companionship until the injury could mend. Mead explained that where the law of the jungle, that is the survival of the fittest, rules, no healed femurs are found. The first sign, therefore, of civilization is compassion seen in a healed femur. That's by a quote from Ira Byock from the book, The Best Possible Care, or The Best Care Possible. I've never read the book, so if it's good or not, if you have, let me know. But that meme really got me to thinking that the foundation of what set our species apart, what set us down the path of that we are on to this point where we've got computers and the internet, we've got modern technology, we've got dental care, we've got modern medicine, all these fun things. The thing that set us apart, that set us down that journey, was our capacity to look out for each other, our capacity to care for each other, and to look out when I might not be able to look out for myself, but if someone is able to look out for me, that means that when they're not able to look after themselves, I'm able to look after them. It was on the foundation of looking out for each other that allowed our species not only to survive, but to thrive. And so I grew up in the 1980s, 1990s, where we saw a lot of the neoliberal philosophies take place in our society. A lot of pick yourself up by your own bootstraps. A lot of downgrading of government programs in favor of privatizing the profits, and a lot of objectivist philosophy of looking out for number one. If everybody looks out for themselves, then everybody will be looked after. Is the sort of the guiding philosophy, and we've seen the toll that has taken on our society, where people won't look out for each other, where people are distrustful of each other, and we're alienated not only from our work, but from the communities that we're all a part of. And the reality is, you can't pick yourself up by your own bootstraps. You do that, you fall over. But you can definitely lift a hand up to somebody and help them up. And in turn, you get a traveling companion, you get more people lifted up and lifted out of poverty. So I'm interested in mutual aid. Everything I've been describing here has been an argument for the purposes of working together and coming together to help each other out. So another way of thinking about mutual aid is direct action. And so to help define it, I'm enlisting the help of a YouTube content creator by the name of JD, who runs a channel called Second Thought. I'm just going to mute myself, and we're going to play this.
That's where the practices of direct action and mutual aid come in. Let's take a moment to define those terms. Direct action is exactly what it sounds like. Doing things directly with the explicit purpose of improving the material conditions of those around you. This often includes going on strike or staging sit-ins or protests, things to bring attention to a problem. When used in relationship to mutual aid, the act of helping others and building strong interpersonal connections, direct action could mean establishing a community fridge or free store, a place where people who need help could come and take the food they need. It could mean finding places for people to stay when their power goes out during a winter storm. At its core, mutual aid is the practice of helping others in any way you can, fully cognizant of the fact that one day you may need help, and that hopefully the community you helped build will be there to help you. There's an old Reddit thread that sums up the philosophy pretty well. You've probably heard the phrase, "today you, tomorrow me." I'll link the thread below, but the gist is this. A man breaks down on the side of the road, his tire blown. He's there for hours, watching countless people and tow truck drivers go by, despite trying to wave them down for help. Eventually, a poor Mexican family pulls over, the husband helps fix the flat, and his reasoning was, "today you, tomorrow me." This kind soul understood that this could have happened to anyone, including himself, and that he would have needed help in that situation. The user who posted this story said that he now goes out of his way to help others, and always tells them, "today you, tomorrow me." That's what mutual aid is all about, building a community of people willing to help each other. The act of fixing a flat tire is a pretty good summation of the goal of direct action as well. Someone has a material concern, a broken down car, and the solution is for someone who is able to fix it.
We good? So somebody has a need, somebody has a solution. Today you, tomorrow me. The basic idea behind mutual aid and direct action. You know, if I have the means and wherewithal to be able to help somebody out, I can, and I do. At least that's the hope. So I mean, I've got some experience with mutual aid, mostly through my past life as a working as a minister, missionary and stuff. I've tried to get away from all that at this point in my life. But the good parts of addressing people's needs and helping people out has led me to believe that this is definitely a way forward that we can pursue.
That's where the practices of direct...
Oops. So the question, once we've identified that today me, tomorrow, today you, tomorrow me, and I'm willing to be a participant in how we do mutual aid, the next question is, well, how do we do it? And for this, I'm taking some inspiration from some people out there. The truth is, I don't have a whole lot of experience doing mutual aid. So taking from somebody by the name of Barbara Shear, who doesn't do mutual aid. What she does is something where she takes people's dreams, takes a wish or desire that they have and empowers them to experience it. I'm going to let her explain what it is that she found in the process of identifying people's needs and how to address those people's needs, and use that as a bit of inspiration for how we can potentially do mutual aid here as VAWMA. You ready? Yeah, thank you. Mute.
I began to realize that I had found the absolute guaranteed secret to success, and boy, did it have nothing to do with positive thinking. Oh boy, nothing. And I thought, because here's the punchline: isolation is the dream killer, not your rotten attitude. You can hate yourself, you always do, you know it. You wake up in the morning and go, I'm fat. You know you do that. If you wake up in the morning and go, I'm here, your wife will kill you in your sleep tomorrow night. And I'll help her. You can't walk around faking feelings. I mean, to yourself anyway. And just feel bad that everybody started it. So that says cross out positive thinking. And this says, here's a team, right? Not necessarily your closest friends or your parents, because they've got attitudes about you. They might not help. Strangers are great. They're absolutely great. So here's what you do. You get a team, you figure out what you want, and then you say, here's my wish, and here's my obstacle. Here's what I want, and here's why I cannot have it. If you don't say both those things, nothing happens. We are problem-solving animals. If you say, I'd love to be a ballerina, everybody goes, If you say, I'd love to be a ballerina, but I'm 44 years old, someone goes, every mind starts working. Even if people don't like you, they'll solve your problem. So I said, I heard about 44-year-old, there's one called in Boston, there's a new ballet troupe. I read about it in a magazine. I'll find it. People want to help. Amazing things will happen to you.
People will help, is the idea. You have a problem, you identify it, you bring your identified need to the community, and we've all heard of 6 degrees of separation. Same idea. We're just utilizing that 6 degrees of separation to connect people from what it is that they have a need for to what it is that somebody might be able to address that need. So, see here.
I began to realize.
No, I'm not doing another video. So how we're going to do this, this is what our current proposal is. And I'm open to best practices. I'm open to different ideas. But our current proposal is that we do a 4-week rotation of as VAWMA, where we do mutual aid on weeks 1 and weeks 3. We do cooperative business development on weeks 2 and weeks 4, as well as have a formal general meeting on week 4, where we can do formal VAWMA business. The mutual aid, to accomplish this, what I propose is that we have people come together. We break up into small groups, anywhere between 4 people to 6 people, and you go around the circle. Person with a need says, person number 1, I have a need. Then they say, okay, well, what's your need? And they say, well, I need help cutting my lawn. And they say, okay. And then we go around the circle. The person on their left that says, well, I can help cut a lawn. Perfect, need addressed. Then we move on to the person onto their left, and they say, do you have a need? And that person will go, no, I'm good. And then we move on to the person on their left, and we say, do you have a need? And they say, well, yes, I do have a need. And then once they present their need, we go around the circle until their need is addressed. In the event that we have somebody's need that's too big for the circle, that cannot be addressed, then we take that need, we bring it to the entire group, and we present their need to the entire group at the end when we bring everybody to get back together from our small groups. And we present, hey, we've got somebody who needs their barn repainted. Anybody got any experience with barn painting? Or anybody know anybody who's got any experience with barn painting? And hopefully, inevitably, somebody's hand will go up and say, yeah, my cousin paints barns. Okay, well, let's get your cousin connected with this guy and see if we can't get a barn painted. Okay. That's my proposal for how we do things. It's fairly straightforward. Identify a need, address the need. And we do that on weeks 1 and 3. Then we continue that on until we get a couple of other things. Right, you can see we've got it's a 5-year plan. The idea is that we continue to meet like this once a week over the course of doing a 4-week rotation until we get businesses that we've come up with as for an idea that we can get behind and that we can then turn into making money. And we then take the money that we make through the businesses that we start, we incorporate, and we keep. Running out of time. Okay, yeah, we'll bring John Restakis back in a minute. And then we'll start fresh there. So, but that's pretty much it. My question to you guys is, does anybody here have any personal experience with mutual aid, being involved in mutual aid networks? And what was the best practices from being involved in mutual aid that you might be able to suggest that we could adopt with VAWMA? Kat.
Well, I don't know if I can pick me up or not. I was able to participate in the use of the Red Cross about 5-6 years ago. In all honesty, it was very mismanaged. It was disorganized, and they did not come with the need that we needed at that time. I understand it was an emergency situation. In my humble opinion, if we are going to have mutual aid 100% organized, in an event of emergency, God forbid anything should happen, if we have a call tree, okay, we call this person, we know exactly in case of this, standard operating procedure, X, Y, and Z. We now call this person who is in charge of step 2 of standard operating procedure, ABC.
Right.
The more organized mutual aid is, the more successful it's going to be. Because right now, as you can see, my view could be very jaded. Mutual aid is disorganized. FEMA, Red Cross. Where does the help come when it's needed?
Right.
6 weeks later.
So for those listening on the internet, hello. And in case you didn't hear that, if I'm going to summarize that correctly, the mutual aid was welcome but disorganized, and that affected the quality of your experience.
Correct.
So what I'm taking from that then is that the quality or the caliber of our organization should be front and center when we're organizing mutual aid. Okay. Thank you. Crystal, did you have something or no? Oh, okay, sorry. Did anyone else have any experience with mutual aid in the past, or any suggestions for best practices? Okay.
I don't know. I would say, yeah, second, it's gonna require a lot of planning for the worst.
Planning for the worst. Yeah. That could be a little depressing. Because of the trying economic times we're living through, where inflation is increasing while wages stay stagnant in precarious work, workers on the lowest tier of the economic ladder are the hardest squeezed in our current economy. Therefore, trying to organize a solution to our precarious work situation without having something in place to address immediate needs would be akin to creating an agricultural program to address food sustainability in the long term, while everyone starves to death in the short term. And the long-term goal of creating a worker-owned cooperative incubator addresses the systemic problems inherited to capitalism in the long term, whereas the practice of creating intentional community, where we are committed to helping each other where we can, as we can, addresses both our short-term immediate needs as well as bakes into our business model an attitude and expectation of cooperation. Building this into our foundation as we begin to organize, I believe, will prove to be valuable as we begin to move forward with the vision for VAWMA. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody for participating so far. We're going to take a short break and get John Restakis set up to give his presentation here. Hopefully we'll be able to present both video and audio. We're going to fix the audio here in just a second. So feel free to take a break, smoke them if you got them, and we'll get started here probably in about another 5 to 10 minutes.
Can we afford it?
Oh, and before we go, I would actually like to take a moment to reintroduce Kat. She's just going to say a few words about what it is that she does and how she has been an integral part of what we're doing here tonight. So Kat, would you please...
Subscriptions. Can't argue with that.
Till someone forgets pay.
We have my sales pitch slide
Even then.
available.
Oh, no. Maybe. Is it part of your...
I added it, yeah.
Yeah, then we do, then we do.
Find someone's shop.
Discuss.
Yes,
Why
we
wouldn't they
do.
shop there?
We do
Why
have it.
wouldn't they?
Well, because they're not worth buying.
Boom.
Well, there's now to buy.
Should be the next one. Bueno.
Say
So
If they're subscriptions.
I decided to talk about
Yes,
this
yes, I
just before we're going to break because while it does
They might
fit
get brass.
into the
Might even
VAWMA
get shot.
situation,
I'll have an outfill it with.
it is more of an
That's
abstract.
the point.
My passion project
You're
is
all
mental
sailor,
health.
Martin.
And
Really,
when
it's up to
I
you.
needed help for my mental health, it wasn't there.
They do.
So I want to make sure that no one else goes through what I went through looking for support for my mental
And you've
health.
got more than enough shops to provide for, don't you?
The way we interact with
Look, all
mental
the
health,
establishments
the
for a
way
reason,
we
Martin.
adopt mental health, and the way that we recognize mental health nowadays has changed.
That's
Why
fair.
can't the way that
Said
we
it, I know.
not treat mental health, but the way that we live with mental health, why can't it change with it? So while traditional talk therapy
we all
used to
agree.
be the way that people would deal with things, you would go to your doctor, you would be diagnosed, you would be prescribed medications, and then you would be fixing the immediate problem. 6 months ago, I could not leave my house due to agoraphobia from crippling anxiety. 7 years of traditional talk therapy and medication. 6 months ago, I found traditional trauma-aware transformational coaching. I was able to find the root cause of my anxiety. I was able to find the root cause of my limiting beliefs. And now I'm standing up here in front of you guys, live streaming on the internet.
For reals this time.
For reals this time. All because of transformational coach therapy. I have helped people quit smoking. And I'm not saying that because I am a reformed smoker. I had COVID and I quit smoking. I can help you find the root cause. I can help you discover your timeline. And if it's something that you're afraid of, I can help you do it through Dungeons and Dragons. Not a sponsor, don't send me stuff. So I want to put my name out there for anybody who has tried traditional therapy, who has tried traditional means of mental health.
Mrs. Croft.
Well, where are they?
There are other sources out there.
Weavers.
On screen, you will see how you can get in touch with me
Sorry then.
through my email, info@livewithadvantage.com.
That's not the case.
My website is www.livewithadvantage.com, obviously. I also have a WhatsApp number because I do know that this is being streamed across the interwebs, so if you don't live in Canada, it's going to charge me a right penny in order to receive your text messages. So if you do use WhatsApp, you can text me at 519-783-1418.
Nuts happening.
Everyone's working very hard
If
to make sure
you
that shop gets
decide to reach out in the next week because you did see this through VAWMA, I am willing to give the VAWMA rates, which are half of what I normally charge. I know that seems like a lot, but when you think about traditional therapy at $180 an hour over the course of 7 years, that's a lot more than this. And a 6-week breakthrough, we can discover your timeline and we can help you find the root cause and allow you to live better. My tagline, which I want to leave this off with, is in Dungeons and Dragons, when people use the help action, the other player gets to roll with advantage. So let me use the help action to help you live with advantage. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, so we're gonna set up, bring John Restakis back in, and hope we're gonna fix the audio issues. So give us 5 minutes, and we'll be right back.
Okay. All right. Thanks, James. I appreciate it. And hello, everybody. I was thinking about, what I could contribute to this discussion, and I was following sort of the slide presentations and what little I've read from what James has sent me around what VAWG is intending to do. The gist of it really is, how does a group of people actually jumpstart the practice of mutual aid for really designing and engineering a local cooperative economy? I think that's kind of the heart of the matter in summary. And so what I thought may be helpful is if I did a brief presentation looking at the ways in which other regions and other communities have actually built up local cooperative economies based on the practice of mutual aid, and how they're designed, what kinds of principles and practices they employ to do what they do, and some of the lessons I think that we can glean from looking at these experiences. And so I'm going to trace back to the origins or the beginnings of the modern cooperative movement. I know most of you probably know some of this stuff, but I thought it would be good if everybody started off sort of on the same foot and give you some contextual background, and then move forward through maybe 4 or 5 examples of how people, activists, community members come together and start thinking about how to reorganize local economies on the basis of cooperation and mutual aid. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. I'm hoping this is going to work. It should work. Let me just do this. All right, hold on. Don't get ahead of me here. Can you see this PowerPoint? All right, okay, great. And I'm getting very fancy today. I've actually been experimenting with this cameo feature. You can drop yourself into the PowerPoint and see if it works. And it seems to be working fine. All right. All good? All right. So I want to go back to sort of the ostensible beginnings of the cooperative movement itself. And a lot of people point to Robert Owen as kind of the godfather of modern cooperative enterprises. He was an activist, a reformer, a hugely influential personality in the earliest days of the evolution of not just cooperativism, but socialism, and the ways in which the collective needs and the public welfare of a society could be met in other than a private enterprise, free market, capitalist models. Robert Owen was among the very first reformers, at least in the West, in Europe, to introduce socialism as a political project. And his initial idea was actually not the formation of cooperative enterprises as we think of them today, but rather the organization of cooperative communities. So in Lanark, New Lanark is what is the name of the first cooperative community that he organized, which was huge, and it was organized around the textile industry and the textile mills that he himself owned as an entrepreneur. And through the practice of cooperative mutual aid, he hoped to establish a community where the collective efforts of people would contribute to the well-being of the entire community through the organization of cooperative workshops where everybody had an equal share and was an equal member. So these are principles that, of course, have been reiterated in the presentations we heard earlier this evening, but they were at the very foundation of Robert Owen's conception of a cooperative community and how cooperation and mutual aid were the mechanisms, the engine, so to speak, that were capable of transforming the broader society and political economy. So these are just some renderings of New Lanark as it was developed, and it is still there, and it's still sort of a pilgrimage site for people that are interested in the origins of cooperativism and cooperative communities. But what's fascinating is that very few people know. And now, of course, Rochdale was one of the earliest cooperatives in Europe. It was a cooperative store, and originally started with 28 members, and they sold basic goods: flour, sugar, butter, oatmeal, to members of the cooperative that established the first retail cooperative in England. This little store on Toad Lane eventually became the Cooperative Wholesale Society, which became one of the largest producers and retailers of consumer products in the UK towards the end of the 1800s, the beginning of the 1900s, right through the 1900s. However, and these are the some of the original founders and members of the Rochdale store, the Rochdale Pioneers, as many of you will know. However, previous to Rochdale, and I think which is a much more fascinating model when we think about how communities as a whole, not just individual cooperative stores or worker cooperatives, but how communities as a whole can collaborate and use cooperation and mutual aid to remake and re-engineer their economy on cooperative principles. This is a small town in north central Greece, situated near the foothills of Mount Olympus, called Ambellakia. And Ambellakia is now considered the first true cooperative that was established in Europe some 60 years before Rochdale. It was established in 1780, and it was formerly called the Common Association and Brotherhood of Ambellakia. There had already been a whole series of cooperative relationships and partnerships among the merchants and artisans in the area, all of which were involved in the production of crimson thread, red cotton thread, and textiles, for which the reason was known. Especially the red dyes that went into their materials were renowned throughout Europe. And this trade in the production and sale of red cotton thread became the foundation of this little local economy. And they had offices all through Europe, in the major trading centers of Europe, in Vienna, in Trieste, in Leipzig, in Munich, London, Hamburg, all over Europe. They had outlets and agents selling this product. Well, what is fascinating about the model is that every single resident, every family, every man, woman, and child that lived in the region of Ambellakia was a member and a shareholder of this trading company. So the Common Association included shareholders among the artisans, the manufacturers, the investors, and the merchants of the trade, but also every single individual living in the region. So it is an open cooperative model. It is a remarkable example of how an entire village, an entire community can use the cooperative idea of collective ownership to benefit everyone in the community. So, excuse me, all associate members were required to invest in the company a minimum of 1,700 francs, and they also capped the total investment that any one individual can make in order to prohibit the concentration of economic power into too small a group. When producers brought the cotton to the association for processing, the product was assessed by a committee. Producers received 50% of its value upon inspection, and the balance at the end of the year. Thank you. So each member had representation in the association's General Assembly, which was the sovereign decision-making body in the organization. So the notion of a open and inclusive membership within a within a company that shared its profits with all the members of the community was really a revolutionary approach to rethinking how a company could be organized and how a community could benefit from the economic activities of that company. Eventually, the company was so successful that in 1797, it commissioned the building of its own ship, the Calypso, which then transported wares directly to trading houses all across Europe. Now, this is a fascinating model because in a sense, it forecasts the notion of open cooperativism. Traditional cooperatives, as most of you will know, have a closed membership in the sense that the members of a credit union are people that have accounts in the credit union. The members of a worker co-op are the members that work or are employed by the co-op, or the members of a retail cooperative are the people that actually shop at that store. This example of open cooperativism did not build those kind of fixed borders around the membership. It was rather envisioned as a territorially based collective of collaborating cooperators in the total production of this corporation. So that was one of the very earliest models of a company that was organized on an open cooperative concept based on the territory in which people lived and worked for the production of this cotton thread. I want to take this idea now and sort of bring it fast forward to contemporary northern Italy, in the region of Emilia-Romagna, and this on the slide is a picture of Bologna, which is the capital of this region in northern Italy, and is really the heart of one of Europe's preeminent cooperative economies. There are a number of models which I think could be applied in almost every instance of where a group of people want to think about using mutual aid and cooperative systems for re-engineering or remaking local economies on the basis of cooperation. The Emilian model has a number of key features. One is small firms cooperating in production networks. It's a diversified cluster model in industrial districts operating through small firms in a mixed economy, which means that you have these small firms. Some are cooperatives, some are simply small to medium-sized businesses. But what is remarkable about them is whether they're cooperatives or whether they're independent, privately owned firms, the Emilian model enables them to cooperate and to generate these production networks and also supply, marketing, and sales networks that allow very small firms to compete in a global marketplace through these cooperatives that they form with other similar firms in the region. So this is a kind of a map of Emilia-Romagna, and you'll see all these different circles, each one of which represents an industrial district. So there's food, there's textiles and clothing, there's ceramics, there's agricultural machinery, there's wood products, there's shoes and leatherware. So what is unique about the model is that the cooperative networks are clustered around towns that are focused on a particular industry, whether it's ceramics or leatherwork or furniture. And the small and medium-sized businesses that are actually working in that industry collaborate to make the entire region or the entire town more competitive, more productive, and more successful in a global marketplace. So you have this combination of small scale, of cooperation in industrial districts, of networks of production and processing of these goods, which are then exported for global markets and for very, very high-end products. So some of the products that you'll recognize from the region include famous agricultural and food products like Parmesan cheese or balsamic vinegar or prosciutto. These are trademark food products that come from Emilia-Romagna, and almost all of these products are handled, managed, and stewarded by cooperatives of producers that are directly involved in the production of whether it's prosciutto ham or balsamic vinegar or the various cheeses that are now world famous. So what you have here is a cluster model of what they call flexible specialization. You have an anchor firm in the middle, which is typically a firm that has a contract with a buyer. Let's say it's, Armani, and you have a clothing firm which has been contracted to produce a line of, say, menswear jackets for Armani. And then what then happens, and this is kind of the heart of the cooperation, is that that firm then subcontracts the individual components of making that jacket into a production network. So each of the companies that are in the production network specialize in a particular aspect of the production process. It could be dyeing, it could be cutting, it could be the embroidery or the assembly. They are extremely specialized, highly trained and sophisticated in the use of technology for these kinds of products. And they form these production networks that then deliver the finished product to Armani, which is then sold to markets internationally. So this kind of cluster model of industrial flexible specialization is the key to the economic success of Emilia-Romagna. Now, something like 40% of the GDP of Emilia-Romagna is derived from cooperatives. So it is really kind of the heartland of cooperativism in Italy. And it has succeeded in not only producing some of the highest and best quality goods that Italy produces for export, but has also been extraordinarily successful in surviving the many ups and downs and economic downturns in the Italian economy, doing generally better, far better, in fact, than most of the other industrial regions of Italy. And a key reason for this is this cooperative culture that's been established in the region, where agreements between workers and employers, if they're in a private firm, or between members of cooperatives that are working in a cooperative, can collectively decide what is the best way for the firm or the cooperative to survive. Can they share the work if there's less work to go around? Can they collectively take less in terms of the earnings so that everybody can stay employed? Can they change how they supply and distribute their products by cooperating with other networks in other regions? All of these kinds of cooperative and mutual aid relationships have built a kind of an infrastructure of cooperative relationships in the region that are really the anchor, not only for the success of the region, but for its survival during very tough economic times. So, going forward a bit more, a key reason for the success of this approach has been the support of the regional government in Emilia-Romagna. In other words, it is a government that understands that cooperation of small firms can provide an infrastructure that will make the entire region successful and the entire region more competitive, not merely focusing on individual firms, but the collectivity of firms that constitute the bedrock and the backbone of that regional economy. The strategy of the Emilia-Romagna regional government was, and I quote here, to improve the total system through selected policies and to improve the technical level of industry and the quality of products. It is also the aim of the region to promote cooperation and networking among firms. So I think that is the key takeaway from the Emilian model, is that industrial networks combine the strengths of smallness with the power of large economies of scale through cooperation. And that reciprocity is the economic principle that drives successful enterprise networks. Cooperative networks maintain and promote trust relationships. They blend different kinds of knowledge to address common problems. They cost share support systems. In other words, service centers, business support systems, technical information and advice, logistical supports, access to technology and innovation, connections with local universities to support these small and medium industries, and the physical proximity of these firms in these industrial districts, which add to the exchange of ideas, of skills, and of the kind of mutual relationships that really cement this kind of system in place. And the other thing that's fascinating about the model is that it's not just one sector that experiences or has developed these cooperative systems. It's cross-sectoral. So it's cross-sectoral both within the economy, and it's also cross-sectoral in that it joins together in a common strategy, government, labor, small and medium-sized businesses, private businesses, and the cooperatives themselves. Okay, so it's an inclusive and holistic vision of how a region as a whole can do better through the cooperative systems that are built among its participating economic actors, small and medium-sized businesses, and the other institutions that go into supporting those systems, like technical universities, government departments, and so on. The third example that I want to share with you, and which may be closest in some ways to the kinds of the vision I intuited from what James had sent me, is in the region of Catalonia. You can see it in red here on the screen, in northeast Spain, on the border with France. And here's just a couple of shots of this very, very beautiful region in Spain, and a region which has a very long history of autonomy and aspiration for independence from Spain. So there's a very strong political movement in Catalonia which supports cooperatives as a way of promoting autonomy and independence for the region from Spain. So the name of the cooperative I want to share with you now is the Catalan Integral Cooperative. It was founded in May of 2010 by an assembly of local activists who were really looking to develop a project that would fundamentally and systemically transform the local economy away from the capitalist model. And this applied not just to economic production, but also to the attitudes and the relationships that people in the region cultivated for, I guess, a different vision of how economies could work, and the relationship to how the economy of the region affects the well-being, the life choices, and the opportunities for self-realization and collective well-being that a new approach to economics could produce. So with this goal in mind, the Catalan Integral Cooperative launched a series of initiatives around the development at the local level of a cooperative economy and a cooperative public system, in which basic needs like food and health care are not commodities, but social goods that everybody should have access to. The CIC has both self-employed members who are independent professionals who use the business organizations of the cooperative to support their individual businesses. They pay a monthly fee for this. And core members. And these are members who are actually working in the committees of the CIC and who receive a basic income for the work they do in promoting the organizational development of this very widely distributed cooperative system. At the bottom of the screen here, you'll see a link, and if you want to get more information on that, you can just tap on that link and check out the report that describes what CIC is in more detail. This is a shot of Aurea Social, which is kind of the headquarters of the CIC. It's really a hugely ambitious undertaking that has succeeded actually in developing a whole series of projects and productive enterprises all across Catalonia. There are two main sources of expenditure for the cooperative. One is the basic income that it pays to committee members and the funding that it provides for affiliated projects and to cover these expenses. In order for the cooperative to survive, it relies on member fees, like any cooperative. The fees are collected from 600 active, what they call auto-ocupados, which are the self-employed professionals who pay a fee for the use of the cooperative's business structures and services for their own use. And this accounts for about 50% of the cooperative's income. The remaining 50% of its income comes from, and this is tricky, it comes from the way it set up its structures, its businesses, which basically act as mechanisms for the payment of services to people that sell whatever it is they're selling, whether they're a cooperative or whether they're an independent professional. They use these businesses as an invoicing mechanism for their services. And according to Spanish tax law, they are then able to receive a tax refund because of the way that the business is structured. So it's basically receiving an income by not having to pay conventional taxes like other mainstream forms of companies are paying. Now, the combination of these two sources of income allow the system to both pay individuals a basic income so that they can do the organizing work and the development work and the management work of the system through a series of about a dozen committees, each of which is responsible for a very specific task like communication or information technology or the management of common spaces. These committees are really the organizational infrastructure of the entire cooperative across Catalonia. The basic income is something that is extraordinarily important because it allows people the capacity to do the organizing work and the development work that is absolutely fundamental to the success of this model. The basic income is distributed on the basis of need. So very interestingly, everybody does not receive the same basic income. That is negotiated between the individual on the committee and the cooperative based on what they determine are their actual living expenses and their actual personal needs. The highest amount for a member's basic income at the time this was written was 765 euros plus 135 ecos per month. And the other key element that I want to close on is the access to capital. The the system's local exchange networks, which are based on forming cooperative mutual aid relationships among producers in a local town or village. They use local currency, which is called the ICO, which is used to facilitate transactions within that region. So a key factor for the success of this model is access to local currency and capital that can then be reinvested in the productive processes of these various enterprises and cooperatives that have been set up by CIC. I don't want to go too much more into that. It's an extremely interesting, rich model for understanding how mutual aid and how cooperation can be designed into the kinds of support systems and the institutional structures that are so crucial to both developing local enterprises that are cooperative, but also accessing all the various technical support, labor support, and investment capital that is necessary to get these enterprises off the ground. The other thing that is really fascinating about this model is that the CIC does not act as a centrally controlled network of projects. Most of these projects are autonomous. They have their own management teams. They are self-determining in how they operate, but they are part of a decentralized network that receives political and technical support from CIC. And finally, there is a cooperative, a social and networking network self-financing, which is a savings, donations, and project funding cooperative, which was set up with the purpose of providing funding for projects that align with the vision and the goals of CIC. Okay, so what we have here then is another example on a much larger scale than Ambalakia, which was basically, a village in a very specific part of northern Greece. This is something that is spread across the whole of Catalonia and Spain, and it is another example of open cooperativism, in that everybody or anybody that is working and living in the region can become part of this system, can contribute to its development, can benefit from being a part of it. And in addition, the kind of the knowledge, the tools, the organizational structures, and even some of the products that are produced are designed to be used by everybody in common. So they don't apply the typical intellectual property or other kinds of exclusionary rights that go into as a matter of just kind of course for most enterprises. Everything that's produced by the system is intended to be used and reused and shared by everybody, not only within Catalonia, but outside of Catalonia as well. And of course, you have at the local level weekly assemblies by the various projects and cooperatives that have been set up by the network, as well as a monthly general assembly by the regional sort of coordinating committee that acts as a kind of the roundtable and public discussion space for looking at the broad systemic issues that need to be addressed by the system as a whole. Okay, so there are some lessons here, I think, that we can draw on. One is this combination of integration and decentralization. So you have locally based, autonomous, self-managed firms or exchange networks among people that are exchanging not only goods and services, but also things like what was described earlier, people coming together to share information or skills around social services and social care. So this decentralization on the one hand along with integration and cross-sectoral collaboration across these networks on a regional scale. They are learning networks. In other words, they're constantly shifting and changing and adapting and scouting out what are the kinds of needs and what are the weaknesses of the production systems and the region, and how can we then collaborate to fix those, identify those, and fix those. There is a focus on managerial capacity, especially in Emilia-Romagna, where these cooperatives are sometimes multinational cooperatives. And so management skill is something that is absolutely crucial for the success of these systems. Access to capital, which I mentioned, access to technical support and mentoring for new enterprises or new cooperatives, cross-sectoral cooperation, clear rules and accountability. Somebody mentioned earlier on in the meeting where there was a mutual aid effort that was attempted, wasn't very well organized, and ultimately, I guess it didn't do what it was intended to do. Part of the challenge of these kinds of systems is the need to establish clear rules of operation and clear lines of accountability. And this is something that a lot of cooperatives, especially territorial cooperatives of the kind we're discussing, don't get right and sometimes avoid for fear of conflict or for fear of discord. But in fact, having clear lines of accountability and rules of operation is absolutely fundamental for success. The other lesson here, I think, is the focus on starting small, on identifying specific needs, and then building on successes. It's important to prioritize what people actually do need and care about, and where the resources can be sought for applying them to the servicing of that particular need. Rigorous business planning, partnerships with municipalities, with other supportive institutions, with foundations, and with other complementary networks. In almost every successful case that has a long-term, I think, sustainable impact, municipalities and the governing structures of the town or of the region play an important role in supporting these kinds of models and becoming partners in their operation. And then finally, community education to build a cooperative culture. In my experience, the most difficult thing to overcome and the most important thing to succeed at, both in developing an individual cooperative or in developing a cooperative regional or local economy, is the attitude of people in that region or in that town or in that cooperative. So doing the kind of education and cultural development around cooperative values and practices is absolutely fundamental. That is actually at the foundation, at the base of a successful cooperative initiative, whether it's an independent individual cooperative or whether we're trying to build a mutual aid system for, say, healthcare or home care. Building a cooperative culture where people understand and intuitively accept the practice of cooperation and mutual aid is possibly the most productive outcome of this kind of model, is how it changes people's attitudes and how it changes people's relationships, orienting them towards the common good and the public welfare, not merely what serves their own particular private purposes, but what serves the society as well. So I am going to leave it at that. I have a lot more in this presentation, and I haven't got time to get to it, but I will send it to James. And then if people are interested, they can delve into a number of other examples I provide in the presentation